On that note, let's welcome in top Sportsline analyst Kenny White, the Wizard of Odds, and the maestro Larry Hartstein. The new season kicks off this week with the reigning champs, the LA Rams, taking on this year's Super Bowl favorite, the Buffalo Bills. Rams are the home dog with the spread here, favoring Buffalo by less than a field goal. The total's at 52.5. Defending champions are 19-3 in week one since the start of the millennium, winning 4 straight. Wiz, we will start here with you. How likely is this trend to continue?
You know, we got great storylines all week, and this trend could very well continue. I'm kind of shocked. The Rams, they got to know that they're an underdog in this game. That's extra motivation for them. Now, I did tease the Rams, not that I was scared, but a teaser of 2.5 up to 8.5, crossing 4 key numbers with several teams on Sunday, I thought was great value because I think this is going to be a great game back and forth. As I was going to say, the storylines are great throughout the week one games, but it doesn't get any better than the Thursday night game. The best team in the AFC right now, I think, is the Bills. I think they're a little better than the Chiefs right now, and I think the Rams are probably right now neck and neck being the best team in the NFC. So this could be a Super Bowl preview. In week one, the very first game of the season, we could be seeing this as the first game and the last game. I'm going over the total. Josh Allen has propelled himself to one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, and we know we got Captain Comeback with Matthew Stafford. If they're behind, he's going to put points on the board. So I went over 52.5 here.
Kenny, I love that teaser, and I do think we see a lot of fireworks. You know, it is going to be a coming out party for the Bills as Super Bowl contenders, but how about a coming out party for Allen Robinson? I mean, this guy toiled in the desert that is Blake Bortles and Mitchell Trubisky and Justin Fields, and now he gets to play with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp and all of those weapons, and this guy is going to go off because the Bills will not have Tre'Davious White. They're going to start a rookie, maybe 2 rookies in the secondary, and Allen Robinson, you know, who was busy catching 1 million contested passes that were poorly thrown at him for 8 years, is going to thrive. They love him. They're lining him up all over the place. And how about Rams in week 1 under Sean McVay? As you see the graphics team put up, absolutely dominant. You give a brilliant mind like him this much time to prepare. I got to take the points with the Rams.
I will add, none of those wins coming off the celebration of a Super Bowl title, but we'll see if the trend continues here. Hard to bet against the guy who's continually getting his team ready for week 1. We got to keep this party rolling here to Saints and Falcons. We're going to offer up one of 6 divisional matchups, guys, in week 1. Divisional dogs in week 1 going off at better than a 75% clip. That dates back to 2014. Whether it's the Dirty Birds or Dirty Money, I feel a whole lot safer on the Saints side of that conversation. No trouble in Atlanta as of late. Given 5.5 here, total's a short 42.5. Kenny, where do you feel sharpest?
I'm going to go against the total here again. I'm going over the total 43 points. We saw a high-scoring preseason, and the reason why is there was more time to prepare this year. Last year, there was very little time. They sat out camp. They got to no preseason games were scheduled till late, and the offenses just weren't ready. This year, the offenses were ready from the get-go in preseason, and we saw that. So I think we're going to see that again in week 1. The Saints, I think, have the 5th best offensive line in the NFL. The Atlanta Falcons, number 7. Their offensive line's outstanding. They bring in Marcus Mariota. You lose Matt Ryan, you think it would be a big drop-off, but I've only got a 1-point drop-off from Matt Ryan to Marcus Mariota. So I think the Falcons will be just fine offensively. I don't think they'll be fine defensively. 23rd in the NFL. I think the Saints will have their way scoring against this Falcon defense. And Marcus Mariota and the offense have to keep up. So over 43.
Yeah, one of the most remarkable things about Jameis Winston's start last year when he was 5-2 and taking care of the football is he didn't get to beat up on the Atlanta Falcons. That was Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian, but this time Winston will be there. He looks sharp in his only preseason action, 4 for 4, has a ton of new offensive weapons, and I agree with Kenny. The Falcons defense is very subpar, and there won't be a home field advantage there. There'll be almost as many Saints fans. I guarantee you they'll be louder because they have something to look forward to other than a top 5 or a top 10 pick, which is what the Falcons are headed towards. I'm going to lay the point.
Right, next up, we head to Soldier Field in a game that probably means more to Musso and I as fans here. This is the lowest total of the weekend. The 49ers are favored by a touchdown. The total is actually low at 41. One of the more anticipated quarterback battles between Trey Lance and Justin Fields, 2 explosive mobile quarterbacks with a lot of promise, but not a lot of experience. Larry, who are you giving the edge to?
Well, Kenny broke out the teaser already. This is my favorite teaser play, and that's the 49ers from -7 to -1. Look, they're going to run the ball. There's no Khalil Mack. There's no Eddie Goldman. There's no Bilal Nichols. There's no Akeem Hicks. Who is going to stop the run? And Kyle Shanahan in the month of September averages over 28 points a game, but he's going to be running it with Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson and Deebo Samuel and, of course, Trey Lance running the ball. So this is just an ideal teaser leg. I'm going to tease it with the Vikings and put them up over a touchdown as home dogs. We can talk about that later, but if forced to pick on the spread, I would also lay the touchdown.
This was one of my teaser legs, Larry. The Rams to the 49ers minus the 1 point. The 49ers, Shanahan, I think this will be a coaching mismatch. He'll be ready to go. I don't know if the Bears will be able to stop the 49ers run game as well, but that opens up the passing for Trey Lance, and he'll be able to show off that strong arm, stretch the field, and make plays for the 49ers. And also Justin Fields will be able to do the same with his legs and his arm. But again, two young quarterbacks. There could be some turnovers by those guys as well. The number, the lowest on the board at 41.5. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, I will likely be paying a price on a Nick Bosa sack prop with that Chicago front line, leaving plenty to be desired in the preseason and in years past. And I know these guys know, you don't yet. I have things in my home that I name after certain principal wagers. I have a Bears under sectional. So it is the lowest total of week 1, but it's that low for a reason. We'll see if we can furnish the rest of the
We should
apartment.
get a little side bet between us as the resident 49ers fan versus the resident Bears.
We'll get something ironed out, but we do need to talk about the AFC champs opening up their campaign by welcoming Money Mitch and the Steelers. Monday's depth chart offering up an answer in some ways to the last remaining quarterback question. Mitch Trubisky listed as QB1 in the Steelers' latest depth chart. Feels like a heavy 6.5, though, for a team that represented the AFC, but plenty of folks are expecting regression out of. Larry, how do you stack these two sides up in week 1?
I know a lot of people are expecting them to take a step back, but they really had one major weakness. So we saw it in the Super Bowl when they couldn't block Aaron Donald and the Rams' defensive front, and that was the offensive line. Well, they've got 3 new offensive linemen. They have a lot of weapons that they're going to employ all over the formation, including Hayden Hurst and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. And I just think last year they were so predictable on offense. You know, when Joe Burrow was in the shotgun, they knew he was going to throw, and he still completed the passes because he's that great. But this year there's going to be a lot more misdirection, a lot more unpredictability. Last year, the Steelers came to town. It was 31-3 at halftime, 41-10. I know Mitch Trubisky's more mobile than Big Ben, but I will still lay the point.
So one thing I just thought of, you know, this has been going on for probably 15, 20 years now. Teams that lose a Super Bowl and a close loss like that, it's almost impossible to rebound. Teams do not rebound very well from that because this league talent from top to bottom is so very close. Now, I have the Bengals rated very high this year, and I think they are going to have a good season. But it's the defense that's impressed me. I think they've done a great job of solidifying the defense on the front four and in the linebacking core. I've got them the 8th best defense in the NFL, but it's the Steelers defense that's most impressive. I have them the 2nd best defense in the entire NFL. This being a divisional game, the Pittsburgh offense, I don't like if it's Trubisky or if it's Kenny Pickett at quarterback. I would much rather have had Kenny Pickett at quarterback for my under in this one, but I'm going to go under here, under 44.5 with Trubisky as the starter. But it's all about Pittsburgh's defense. I think Mike Tomlin's going to end up being very conservative, run the football, trying to run the clock, and shorten the game.
With TJ Watt, it's hard not to rely on your defense.
Very much so.
There. Elsewhere, the Eagles take on the Lions in Detroit as 4-point favorites. Both teams made pretty significant offseason moves and should be much improved. Philly adding top receiver A.J. Brown and Detroit drafting rookie defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Despite the 2nd worst record in the NFL last season, the Lions were the 3rd best against the spread, ending at 11-6. Kenny, how do you feel about the Lions' ability to cover this week?
Yeah, my number's right on this game, Katie. So I'm going to pass on the side in this game. And the Lions were a try-hard team last year. They never gave up. So we'll see if that happens this year because losing is difficult. And when you're losing, you get tired of it. So we'll see if they can continue to try hard game in, game out. This is not a very good football team, especially the defense. I've got dead last in the NFL. Even the Bears defense, Joe, is better than the Lions defense. Yeah, I wanted to throw that in for you. And, you know, Philadelphia's defense defense isn't that great either. I got them 21st in the NFL, but offensively, number 6, the second best offensive line. They're going to be able to run the ball all day against Detroit in this game, and they'll then be able to set up the pass and use the play action for big plays down the field. I think the Lions put their points up as well. Jared Goff and this offense is decent, and they can score. It's just their defense that worries me. So over the total for me, I think this could be one of the higher scoring games of the weekend.
Kenny, I disagree with you on the Eagles defense because I think they made some major upgrades when you add a pass rusher like Hassan Reddick, a corner like James Bradbury, an interior guy like Jordan Davis to play alongside Fletcher Cox. Nobody's going to be able to run on this team. And they had just an amazing offseason. And, of course, you add A.J. Brown to team with Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins and Dallas Goedert and Jalen Hurts and his running ability. I think everything points towards the Eagles. The Lions are a great story. They're going to fight hard, but their secondary, I don't think, can keep up with all of this Eagles talent.
Larry Hartstein, front of the line at both Pats and Geno's, making a lot of friends in Philly, which means making a lot of friends in this newsroom as well. Guys, it's no secret the AFC East and potentially the entire conference will run through Orchard Park, but there's an interesting conversation to be had there surrounding the second favorite in the division. Pats and Finns, both going off in the 4.5 to 1 range to win the division. Short Miami advantage reflected in Sunday's game line as well. Fighting Tua's given 3 here, totals 46.5. Kenny, how do you separate these two prior to seeing a single snap?
Yeah, you know, I'm not as high on Miami as most people are, and it could be because I don't have a high rating on Tua Tagovailoa. And again, he just doesn't have the arm strength. I bet Teddy Bridgewater is the better choice at quarterback for the Dolphins. Bill Belichick's squad, very lacking in talent. This roster is one of the weakest Patriot rosters I've seen in a long time. But again, in the NFL, the talent from top to bottom isn't that great, and coaching can make a difference. And Bill Belichick, I think, will make a difference in this for this team this season. He's got his quarterback back for the second year, and Mac Jones, who did a great job in year 1. But again, I don't have a lot of confidence in either one of these teams. But I will take Bill Belichick plus 3 points in a game that he has this much time to prepare for.
Kenny, that is absolute blasphemy, saying Teddy Bridgewater over Tua Tagovailoa. And I think Tua has the pieces around him that he needs to succeed. And it's not just Tyreek Hill and Cedric Wilson as the receiver or Raheem Mostert in the backfield, but what about Connor Williams and Teron Armstead to upgrade the offensive line? He has everything he needs to succeed. And most importantly, he's got a brilliant offensive mind. Mike McDaniel, the guy that made Deebo Samuel a running back, the guy the 49ers are going to miss terribly this year because he was a big reason why that offense was so successful. And the Patriots have been a disaster in preseason. The offense, 7 drives, 10 points. That's the starting offense against a lot of backups, too. No separation for the receivers, no holes for the offensive line. They lost 2 of their best offensive linemen. I wish I had gotten the Dolphins at 2.5, but I will definitely still play it at 3.
Look at Larry Hartstein pairing a nice cafecito with his cheesesteak. Making a lot of friends on the Eastern Seaboard right now, no doubt.
Yeah, Larry talks about the Patriots being a disaster in the preseason, but you know who's not a disaster in the preseason is the Ravens. Never. The Ravens at Jets. Ravens favored by a touchdown. Over-under is at 44.5. Coach Robert Saleh told reporters that quarterback Zach Wilson, who is dealing with a bone bruise and meniscus tear, is still a possibility to play on Sunday. Whether it's Wilson or veteran Joe Flacco at center, New York is looking to avoid becoming the first team in NFL history to start 0-3 in 4 straight seasons. Larry, what are the odds that Gang Green can get a win against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens?
I think they're pretty slim. I mean, it will help if J.K. Dobbins doesn't suit up because then the Ravens are looking at a backfield of Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis. But even if he doesn't suit up and even if it is Zach Wilson, I think they can use Zach Wilson's mobility because Joe Flacco is just a total statue at this point in his career. You know, he had a series or he had a few drives in the last preseason game and he threw a pick 6 right to the Giants linebacker. You know, that kind of play is going to happen when you can't move out of the pocket. But you look at Lamar Jackson, when he opens this season, he usually does it with the bang, averages over 40 points a game. And the Ravens lost last year in Vegas in overtime, but before that, week 1, 5 straight wins, 3 of them by 30-plus points.
Yeah, I've got to be on the Ravens here. They were one of my teaser teams as well, Rams to the Ravens. Also, the 49ers to the Ravens were a kind of a round robin teaser that I used. But I laid the 6.5. It's up to 7. I still say go ahead, lay the 7. This Baltimore team, and why the Baltimore is so good in preseason, I say it every year, is Jim Harbaugh knows talent. He knows the talent that fit his system. He's got the best second string in the NFL for years. He gets the most out of the players that he has. 4 years ago, just using Pro Football Focus ratings, they had the worst talent in the NFL, but still made the playoffs. And that's just a tribute to Harbaugh because he's such a great coach. And I think that's a mismatch in coaching in this game. It's a mismatch on offense, and it's a gigantic mismatch on the defensive end. I've got Baltimore the 6th best defense, and the Jets number 28. The Ravens, I think, win this by 2 touchdowns.
You know, you see some of the strategy that our sharps employ here, teasing you off of touchdown numbers, getting across those really critical numbers as well. It is a strategy you can employ as well. And one of the pieces of wisdom Kenny White always offers up early in the season, we've heard it over the last couple weeks here, Kenny, when in doubt, you just side with the better QB. Jags Commanders is going to showcase year 2 Lawrence against team 3 Wentz. A lot of familiarity there with new Jacksonville head coach Doug Peterson and the Washington signal caller. Kenny, does that relationship factor into your analysis of this one at all?
No, not really, Joe, because I don't, these two kind of pretty close. I've got Wentz rated higher than Lawrence just because the experience factor. And a lot of people don't like Wentz, and a lot of people are down on him as a quarterback in the NFL. He's a decent NFL quarterback. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's got talent, and, he's made some mistakes, but the more experience you have, the better you're going to be. I think his pieces around him, although are far better than what Jacksonville has, and especially it's the defense where I like Washington. Washington's loaded. Even without Chase Young, they still have one of the best defensive lines in the entire NFL, the 6th best defense overall in the NFL. Jacksonville, I got number 29. I've got a big difference. This is my biggest difference of any game in week 1. I'm shocked that the Commanders are just a 3-point favorite here.
Yeah, but Kenny, this defense returned almost everyone, and they gave up 26 points a game last year. They were not very good. I know Montez Sweat is supposed to be back, but the Jaguars had the biggest coaching upgrade, in years. When you go from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winner, and then you spend $250 million on guys like Christian Kirk and Brandon Scherf and Darius Williams. These guys are solid players. They may have overpaid for all of them, but they improved their roster dramatically. I think Trevor Lawrence takes a big step. I think Carson Wentz, they could have picked him up after he was released. He is just not accurate anymore at this stage. I'll take the Jaguars plus a point.
Overpaid, but better nonetheless. All right, next up, one of the biggest storylines of week 1, the Baker Mayfield revenge game. Browns at Panthers. Carolina currently the 2.5-point favorites with a total at 41.5. Kenny, what is your initial reaction to the numbers on this one?
Yeah, well, I think the sharp bettors got out early on this and took points with Carolina, knowing that they'd end up being the favorite. They're a 2.5-point favorite now. It's right on my number. I made Carolina 2.5, 41.5 in this game. But you know what? Maybe the Browns were right about Baker Mayfield. Maybe Brissett is a better quarterback. We'll see at the end of this game. But I think Cleveland will fight hard. They haven't won a preseason game 17 years. It's incredible. Or a first week game. They know that. These guys know that. I think you're going to get a great effort from Cleveland. I'm not betting the game unless this number goes that much higher. And if I see a 3.5, I'm taking 3.5 with the Browns.
Yeah, total agreement, Kenny. If this gets to 3 or higher, you have to look at the Browns with that running game that averages over 5 yards a carry, 20 rushing touchdowns, and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Jacoby Brissett. Let's remember, in 2019, he had the Colts off to a 5-2 start. This guy can manage the game. He got hurt, and then the season spiraled from there. But Baker Mayfield, he was hurt last year. He shouldn't have even been playing. I don't know that Jacoby Brissett is a downgrade from a hurt Baker Mayfield, and the Browns still finished 8-9. Slight lean if you can get the full field goal.
All right, Larry wants to talk Indy, so we will talk Indy. They're facing off with the lowest projected win total this season, which belongs to the lowly Houston Texans. They open up the season with that in vogue playoff pick that is Indy. New look Colts likely to lean on the running game once again, but it's Matty Ice, an aging Matty Ice at that, breaking the huddle. Colts given 8 on the road in week 1. It's just a tough thing to even say, even look at. Larry, are you in the business of playing with that sort of fire?
You know, the Colts only gave up 3 points to the Texans in both meetings combined. So there's a reason this number is where it is. And I'm very high on the Colts this season. I think Matt Ryan is an upgrade. Jonathan Taylor is going to run wild. But in week one, I just think this is too many to lay. When you've got Davis Mills, who finished so strong, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks over his last 7 games, 3 300-yard games, got a great electrifying running back that we all saw in the preseason in Damian Pierce. Laramie Tunsil comes back healthy. And the Colts are not a team. They want to run the ball on you. So if they get up 14, they are not going to be aggressive throwing to go up 21. That Davis Mills can get us through the back door. I would take the point.
I'm going to go over in the game. I like the addition, obviously, of Matt Ryan at quarterback. It was definitely an upgrade over Carson Wentz, and that just makes Jonathan Taylor that much more explosive of a running back. Defensively, I have Houston number 31 in the NFL, and Larry mentioned Davis Mills had a good year last year. He did a nice job protecting the football and moving his team down the field. So I am over 46 in this one.
Kenny White and Larry Hartstein, always on the money. Gentlemen, we appreciate your insights. Take another look at those picks from the Wagering Wonders, the Wizard of Odds, and the Maestro weighing in. I mean, just screenshot it, take it to the window, and say, please do this for me. You will have to explain a couple of these picks because you can get the over in the Rams, the over in the Saints, the over in San Francisco teased with that Minnesota play, but you will find yourself at odds when it comes to a couple of the other games that Kenny White and Larry Hartstein find themselves on opposite sides of, and that includes the Pats and the Dolphins, the Commanders and the Jags. Kenny White going to pass on the Browns, waiting for that number to tick to 3.5, and if it does, he's pulling the trigger. As for the Colts and the Texans, it's over for Kenny. Larry on the Texans. Well, as a matter of value, maybe none more important than 12 in green and yellow this season. We got a pair of MVPs as well. The Wizard of Odds, Kenny White, aboard with Sportsline analyst extraordinaire Larry Hartstein. Fellas, for the Pack to get back to the top of the conference, they're likely to need their QB to collect his 3rd consecutive MVP trophy. Week 1 will be an early litmus test within the division. Green Bay given 1.5 in the land of Skull. Kenny, do those numbers look right from where you're sitting?
Yeah, that's a tough game because it's a divisional game, and we're expecting more out of the Vikings this year with a new staff on board and Kirk Cousins under that new staff and being in an offense that may fit him better than what he's been in the past. But you know what? You mentioned earlier, Joe, picking the better quarterback's not a bad thing, and Josh Allen maybe pushed himself to the best quarterback in the NFL after last year, but Aaron Rodgers still top 2 or top 3 in the NFL. I got to go with him. He's starting to look more like Nicolas Cage to me than Aaron Rodgers, but I'll take Aaron Rodgers here in the Packers and lay the points.
Kenny, I got to go against you. I'm going to tease the Vikings up to over a touchdown, and I just love this matchup. I mean, the Packers, not only is there no Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard's status, he's supposed to be the WR1. His status completely up in the air. They could be relying on a couple of rookies. Meanwhile, Kevin O'Connell takes over an offense that's just loaded with talent that Mike Zimmer would not let be aggressive. And now Kirk Cousins is going to be aggressive with Justin Jefferson and Thielen and Osborne and Irv Smith and Dalvin Cook. And I just think that switch from a defensive mind to a pass-first attacking offense is going to make all the difference for the Vikings this season. We all remember that game against Cooper Rush and the Cowboys where Mike Zimmer wanted to run the ball into a 13-7 win on a primetime game. Kevin O'Connell will not do that. He's going to come out throwing. Take the Vikings as a teaser at 7.5.
Yeah, that might be the smartest thing you could do because when you take a look at those numbers that were on the screen, 13 wins for the Packers last season, 12 winning tickets. So when they win, they cover. Let's get that number a little bit bigger on the Minnesota side of the conversation.
The New York Football Giants take on the Tennessee Titans as 5.5-point underdogs. The G-Men are 0-5 straight up and against the spread in their last 5 season openers. However, it's a new era for the New York G-Men under head coach Brian Daboll. Both head coaches cut from the same Bill Belichick cloth here. The question is, which one does their job and gets the win? Larry, we'll start with you.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to go with the Giants. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think this is going to be a close game. When you look at the Titans losing their best pass rusher, Landry, devastating blow right before the season. And Daniel Jones, the poor guy hasn't had a lot of healthy bodies around him in terms of Barkley and Tony and Galladay. And at least for week 1, it does look like they'll be out there. He started 9 games last season as an underdog, covered 6 of them, won 4 of them outright. The Titans are a run-first team, not going to be so so explosive without A.J. Brown. I just don't see how you can lay that kind of a number with a team that's going to be limited offensively like the Titans. I totally wish I had grabbed 6.5. I wish I had grabbed 6. At this point, I will still, though, take the 5.5.
I'm going to lay the points, Larry, in this game because I just don't see the roster here for the Giants. It's an organization that's been going the wrong direction for more than 4 or 5 years now. They may have the head coach of the future. We don't know. We have no idea. They haven't been able to select a guy that's been able to coach, and I don't know how long. Tennessee, that's a different story. Their head coach is in place. He's done they had the best record. They had the best record in the AFC last year. I know there's no A.J. Brown, but wide receivers are a dime a dozen. Somebody will step up. Tannehill's the better quarterback. They get the better running game. They get the better offensive line. They get the better defensive line. They're better in the linebacking core, and they're better in the secondary, and their special teams are better. So all the check marks are crossed for Tennessee in this game. I'm laying the points.
Yeah, you mentioned that coaching carousel. Not since Tom Coughlin, 2015, that era ended, has there been really a solidified answer in the head coaching position. They're hoping they have that here in Brian Daboll. We're also going to get a pair of Big 12 bad boys going at it. They're going to start, well, it will end in February. Good time, Patty Mahomes. Hoping for no drop-off in the absence of his top target this season. Kyler Murray is faced with that same conundrum, but only for the first 6 weeks of the year. Kenny, how much does continuity factor into your early season selections, and does that sway you one way or the other in this one?
Well, you always want to, and more in college sports, I want the continuity. I want the coach back, I want the quarterback, and I want I want more than 14 starters both sides of the football. And if you can get those type of situations to get a team that doesn't have has a new coach, it's a really good value. In this situation, I think we have continuity for both. Both coaches have been there a while. The quarterbacks are in place. These are two of the best offenses in the entire NFL. And because it starts with both quarterbacks are outstanding quarterbacks, but both have great offensive lines. I got the Chiefs, the number 1 offensive line, and Arizona number 3. But the defense, I don't like either team's defense. I got the Chiefs ranked 18th defensively, and I got Arizona number 27. I think this will be a high-scoring game. This will be the highest-scoring game of the weekend. I went over 53.5, but my total on this was 61.
Wow, 61. Can't wait to watch that one. This line was sitting at 3 all summer through the Kyler Murray controversy, the independent study in the playbook. It still sat at 3, but then the Sharps really hammered this at 3 and at 3.5. Craig Mucklow from Caesars, the head of trading, said we got hit 5 times by 5 very well-respected bettors that they will just move the line when these guys come to the window, and that's what happened 5 different times on the Chiefs. It could be Andy Reid with all the time to prepare. He's won 7 straight openers. It could be the Cardinals dealing with some injuries in terms of Zach Ertz. They lose the starting cornerback to a terrible, tragic incident, with the cooking oil and the burns. And then you have Marcus Golden, their only pass rusher, now that Chandler Jones is gone, and he hasn't suited up in the preseason with a toe injury. He's also unhappy about his contract. Just feels like a lot of disjointed things without DeAndre Hopkins, and you have Andy Reid. I know there's no Tyreek Hill, but you have the model of consistency in Patrick Mahomes and how he lights up every September. So again, I wish I would have jumped in a lot earlier on KC, but at this point I would still lay it.
My man said 61.
That's a high total.
Building in 7.5 points of wiggle room for us off the actual number.
Yeah.
And when he talks like that, we run.
We run. Okay, big AFC West matchup with Derek Carr and the Raiders heading to LA to take on Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Chargers favored by a field goal, and the total is set to a high 52. It's not 61, but it's 52. Larry, what do you like in this game?
Well, Katie, this is the only play that I have locked in officially at sportsline.com. This is my favorite play of the week, and I have a love affair with the Chargers and everything they did this offseason in terms of Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. I know he's not going to suit up in week 1. All the weapons come back for Justin Herbert. The Raiders were a kind of fraudulent playoff team last season. They won 10, but they really deserve to win 7. And I just think with the offensive line in complete flux, cutting their first-round pick from last year, not knowing who's going to start at right tackle, kickoff less than a week away. I laid it with the Chargers.
I'm going to play this one over. I like both offenses. The Raiders, they went out to get offensive pieces. Obviously, bringing Devontae Adams was the biggest piece. Carr still a well above average NFL quarterback, but it's Justin Herbert for the Chargers. Absolutely love just watching him. He is an outstanding. He's put himself right now in only 2 years into the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. He can make every pass. He's got great accuracy, and I think he's going to have an amazing year offensively in this Charger offense. I think both these teams go back and forth. I think they match score for score here, so I'm going over the total. I didn't make this one 61. I made this one 50. I made this one 56.
We still like 4 points of wiggle room.
We still like it.
That's still a run to the window. Not listed at your local sportsbook, guys. The decade-long battle of Tom versus time. Unofficial numbers positioning the 45-year-old 7-time champ as about a -250 favorite in that matchup. Yeah. But as for the game line, Brady and the Bucs facing off with Dak and the Cowboys as 1.5 favorites. Total sitting right there at a half 100 still. Larry Hartstein, where's the money to be made in this matchup?
Well, we'll have the 2 oldest players in the NFL with Brady and now Jason Peters, 40 years old. That's how desperate the Cowboys are on their offensive line with no Tyron Smith and the other guys that they lost through free agency. And the Bucs offensive line is also a mess when you lose Jensen and all the other guys. And I think the Cowboys will still try to run the ball, even though there's Vita Vea and Akeem Hicks on the other side, and you cannot run the ball against Tampa. They will be stubborn with Zeke Elliott. So all of that said, I think this game is going under because of the weak offensive line.
Yeah, I went over, Larry, because of that fact. I don't think Dallas tries to run it, or if they do and they get 7 yards in their first 10 carries, it's going to have to be all Dak Prescott. I think he's going to throw the ball about 50 times in this game. And we've watched Tom Brady as a Buck. He averages over 40 attempts per game. The offensive line is downgraded, obviously, with the 2 injuries, but Brady gets rid of the football so fast, and he has so many weapons still with this offense. And the Dallas defense, I think, is below average. I think this game goes over the total as well.
The Wizard of Odds thinking that the odd makers have done not a very good job on the totals, leaning on over on a lot of these. Next up, Broncos Nation, let's ride. Although quarterback Russell Wilson will have to deal with the 12th man in his first opener. Broncos favored by 6, total 43. Wizard, how do you see this one shaking out?
This is, an interesting one because I love Russell Wilson. And the first thing when he went to Denver, I thought this is going to be great. I've always been a big fan of the Denver organization. The defense has always been tremendous, but for this season, they have not had they don't have the same defensive pieces they once had. I have the 13th best defense, which is still solid, but I've got Seattle's defense, and I think they've done a good job of bringing players in. I think they're the 11th best defense in the NFL. Their offense is not as good as Denver's, obviously, without Russell Wilson, but the effort you're going to get from the Seattle Seahawks at home against their ex-quarterback and Russell Wilson, this is like playing against your ex-coach, your ex-best friend, your ex-girlfriend, your ex-boyfriend, whoever it is. You have revenge in this situation, and you're going to bring it. And I think Seattle brings a great effort in this game. They may not win, but I think they stay within 6.
No question there will be effort, but I think when you lose your top corner in DJ Reed and Bobby Wagner, the leader of your defense, I think you're in trouble against Russell Wilson because the Broncos had everything last year except a quarterback. They outscored their opponents and somehow only won 7 games. The defense allowed less than 19 points a game. Tim Patrick was a big loss, but when you still have Sutton and Judy and Javonte Williams, an explosive running back catching and running, I just think Russell Wilson is in for a big year. I think the Broncos are in for a big year, and it starts in week 1. They win by at least a touchdown.
Thank you, guys. Some sharp stuff on there today. Let's go ahead and recap those picks. Well, Kenny White likes the over in a lot of these games. With the Chiefs and the Cardinals, he's got all the way up to 61, so we're going to run to the window on that one. He also likes the Packers and the Seahawks. When you're going against your ex-girlfriend or your ex-boyfriend, you have that revenge there, and I like that. Larry on the other side, he likes the Giants, the Chiefs, the Chargers. He's going for the under, and the Buccaneers and the Cowboys, and he is on the Broncos. So he's taking the other side of that ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend matchup.
Gotta love it.
Gotta love it.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.